Yeah, we kick off today's SportsMax Zone with football. The second edition of the UEFA Conference League culminated earlier on Wednesday with Fiorentina facing West Ham in the final at Eden Arena at Prague in the Czech Republic. The match represented the last chance for both teams to secure a European spot. And it was West Ham with a late strike that got the victory in a gripping encounter, Mariah and Ricardo. And West Ham coming away with their first major title in over 40 years and their first title in Europe in over 50 years.
Yeah, it's a big win for West Ham and, of course, coach David Moyes, because remember when he left Manchester United, there were a lot of things being said about him, and I felt as if his career as a manager would have been blotted, tainted, if I'm to say so much, because as we know in football business, in the business of sport, you're judged on the trophies that you win. You're judged on titles. Nobody wants to know, oh, his personality was good. And that's another reason why Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, as nice as he was, when we talk about him, there really isn't anything to go with his name. So I'm happy to see David Moyes, putting in the work with his West Ham side. Mikel Antonio is also a part of West Ham. So, as part of the Caribbean, we feel as if it's a win for us as well. And not to forget, Declan Rice, who has a lot of thinking to do after this trophy, because is it that he's going to leave his winning team to battle the Europa League alone and head across to Arsenal? What is he going to do?
Yeah, we saw some great pictures with David Moyes celebrating at the end of the match, Ricardo, and he is a highly regarded coach, which is why he had got the job at Manchester United in the first place. But Man United is a heavy job to shoulder, and he didn't do very well there, so lost it. So Mariah making the point that his stint at Manchester United, which was an unsuccessful one, saw him losing some stripes. But a good performance here with West Ham today. A season that hasn't really been very good for them,
yes,
but they have ended the season well.
Yeah, they've ended the season brilliant. They finished the 14th in the English Premier League, West Ham. So you would say a below-par campaign for them, and so tonight was extremely important to finish the campaign on a high, and they went out there and they got the job done. Took the lead from the penalty spot in the 62nd minute, Benrahma with that goal, and only 5 minutes later Fiorentina responded to make it 1-1, but Jared Bowen turning up to get the winner. This is the penalty from Said Benrahma to give them the advantage in the 62nd minute. And at this stage, you started thinking West Ham will see it out from here. But it was a very, very good response from the Fiorentina team as well, coming up here in the 67th minute. This is a well-taken goal, I think. A right-footed shot at the end of the day. Very, very well-taken goal to level. And Jared Bowen getting the winner eventually in the 90th minute. And you know what? When you come into a match like this, you look at this and you'll say this was an easy opportunity. But when you're in the 90th minute of a championship final, there's nothing that is easy. And you can see what it meant to the entire West Ham fraternity. You can see what it meant to David Moyes from the celebrations. And yeah, this is a well-taken goal from Jared Bowen. He's been such a critical player for them in recent seasons, and I don't think any better player could have stepped up tonight to win the game for West Ham, because he's been such a critical part of what they do for the last couple of seasons, and he deserves, I think, to be the hero for West Ham.
And I just want to remind the viewers, he was turned down by Villa. He was turned down by Cardiff before. So just for him to find that within himself to keep going is something that's commendable, because sometimes players, after you go through patches, you just give up. But he didn't, and I'm happy for that. He said it's the biggest win in his career.
And most of the match reviews awarding the man of the match honour to Jared Bowen today on West Ham's victory over Fiorentina in the Conference League Championship final. Brent Sancho, former Trinidad and Tobago international, joins us to review what happened in Prague today. Brent, a match that pretty much went down to the wire, very, very competitive, and Fiorentina giving West Ham some anxious moments today. Your overall analysis of what happened in Prague?
Well, it's very typical of West Ham, isn't it, really, Lance, in terms of course, winning when everybody else think they would lose. It's a game that was dominated by Fiorentina. Of course, that call right at the end of the first half, the disallowed goal for Fiorentina, I think a pivotal moment in the game. I felt if that was allowed, of course, things may have changed a bit. But yeah, that's what West Ham done for the entirety of this Conference League Championship. They've been tough to beat. They've been resolute. 9 times out of 10, they didn't do it pretty. And today was indicative of that. It's very much in line of what David Moyes has been throughout his career. Very much in line with what West Ham have been in the last 10, 15 years or so. So, yeah, when everybody else thinks that they're going to lose, they find some way to win.
Yeah, and the fact that the domestic season for West Ham was pretty ordinary, success for them at the end of the season, but does this take the hurt away from what has been a pretty poor season for them?
I think from the fans' perspective, Lance, maybe, yeah, they could see that. They have a trophy to celebrate. But I think if you're really looking inside of West Ham, the football club, there's very few within there would suggest that changes need to be made. It has to be made. I think certainly the direction they've gone, they were a team that was in and out, as I said before, they were there and thereabouts in the top 6, top 4, and they've slid down the table. They were very, very poor this season. And I feel, Lance, if they continue in the same league form that they had throughout this season, they would be in a relegation fight. And one would suggest they're probably going to be in a relegation fight if they don't change things, if they don't bring in signings, if they don't spruce things up. You have to remember as well, they've spent a lot of money. A lot of the signings that they would have brought in, this did not come to the table, or did not come to the game, or did not come to the dance, as they say. So I think they have to also look at that situation. So yes, for the fans' perspective, it's a great day to celebrate, of course, their first European trophy since 1965. But from a club perspective, certainly a lot of work needs to be done.
And Brent, if this is Declan Rice's last game for West Ham, what a way to bow out.
Well, yeah, West Ham has uniquely have a long list of legends. Whether you're talking Carlos Tevez now or Bobby Moore back in the day, they saw all Paulo Di Canio. I could go on and on and on. He will certainly find themselves in and amongst the West Ham legends. It's going to be a very interesting time for Declan Rice. He seemed to encapsulate everything that West Ham is about. Now he's going to take that away and go to another situation. Whether or not he could fit into it, he's highly touted as arguably one of the best midfielders in world football. So it's going to be an interesting time. But if there ever was a storybook ending to a career, this was it for Declan Rice. He's led the team as a captain through and through. He's had opportunities in the past to move for big money, and he decided to stay and sign extension after extension. So he's gifted the club a trophy, and you couldn't ask for a better leaving or parting gift from their captain and talisman, Declan Rice.
Yeah, Brent, without a doubt, do you suspect that this tighter success could influence in any way the decision on whether Declan Rice leaves or stays?
It's a good question. You know, sometimes we get clouded with, victories, we get clouded with results. But at the end of the day, I think there's very few that would argue that maybe West Ham needs a managerial change. Yes, David Moyes has done well. I think the thing, guys, that it's going against David Moyes is that there's so many eligible candidates out there, whether you talk about Potter, Brendan Rodgers, etc., that play a dynamic, fluid style, attractive style of football that maybe the West Ham board and fans would prefer to see, that, of course, dragging themselves across the line to safety, of course, is staying up in the EPL and not being relegated. So, yes, we get clouded sometimes with results, but I would suggest that maybe a change is needed from a West Ham. And it's strange to say that, of course, we see the images of them celebrating and making such a significant mark in European football after so many years. But you have to go down to the brass tacks and the type of season they've had this season. You just cannot afford to have that next season, and hence the reason why I'm saying that I do believe a managerial change may be needed.
Yeah, Jared Bowen, player of the match, scoring the winning goal. But Lucas Paqueta was brilliant in today's game, assist aside. What did you make of his performance?
You know, there have been so many disappointing performances throughout the season for West Ham. Yeah. There are very few that could take credit, and I think Paqueta is one. We talked about how much money West Ham have spent in the transfer market, bringing big players in. Paqueta certainly has been not only their best standing, but one of their more outstanding players. He is that type of player that could unlock defenses, and he showed it today with his passing range and ability. A certain starter in the Brazil lineup, and certainly has been a star man for West Ham. And certainly when you look to the future, we just mentioned, of course, the exit of Declan Rice. I think a lot of Paqueta's success has come because of Declan Rice, because he does not have to rely so much on the defensive side again, because Declan Rice does that for him. So you just have to wonder if the brilliance and that we've seen for Paqueta in this season, if it will continue, minus Declan Rice, because he has been a major influence, but not taking anything away from him. I think he has been simply outstanding today, and that pass is definitely a pass that should win any major championship in world football.
Yeah, definitely a fabulous performance. And let's talk about Fiorentina for a little. Do you feel that on the run of play, Fiorentina will leave Prague thinking we let this one slip?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. And you know, one of the things and criticisms leveled to Fiorentina throughout this season, particularly in Serie A, is that cutting edge in front of goal. I think that certainly let them down today. Of course, you have to give West Ham credit; they defended superbly. But outside of that, I think their cutting edge in front of goal is certainly something that's haunted them throughout the season. I go back to that incident right before the end of the first half, and whether or not that goal would have been allowed may have changed things, and may have, of course, now pushed West Ham to play more on the front foot and try to push more numbers forward. But that being said, I think Fiorentina, in terms of the possession, Ricardo, should have done a lot better, should have created a lot more clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities, and really and truly they only have themselves to blame.
Yeah, well, Brent, with a transfer window on the horizon, it was always likely we would see some big players making moves, and, well, the MLS has a new superstar in a huge surprise to the football world. 7-time Ballon d'Or winner Lionel Messi has decided to take his talents to the USA and play for Inter Miami. We say shocking, but Inter Miami had been listed as one of the possible bases for Lionel Messi since last year. I guess most of us just didn't think it would actually happen. Well, it has. Is this a major surprise for you?
Not really, and I don't feel that Inter Miami is his final destination. I do believe in the theory that he is going to go back to Barcelona on loan. When you look at the possibility of what it presents, it gives him the best of two worlds, the comfort of a contract at Inter Miami that comes with a tremendous amount of commercial capacity, and of course a possibility of what Messi can do with life after football, and of course the possibility of going on loan to Barcelona, and of course going back there as a hero, and being able to give that swan song that he's always wanted at Barcelona. So I'm not necessarily surprised, Lance, because of the wholeness of what is involved here. I know reports suggest that it is just an Inter Miami move, but I won't be surprised if he ends up in Barcelona.
In other words, you're suggesting that you have accepted the Miami move, but it may just be temporary?
Yeah, it's a temporary move. There's no doubt in my mind that it's a stepping stone move to Barcelona. I think the Saudi Arabia move would not have allowed him to go back on loan. The Saudi Arabia move would have meant he would have had to go for a period of time in Saudi Arabia. I just feel that this is a stepping stone move to be loaned back to Barcelona, to beat, of course, the financial implications that they currently have at Barcelona.
Well, he turns 36 years old in a couple of weeks, Brent. Is time running out on him? We know his quality is still there.
I don't think so. I think Lionel Messi will always be a draw from a commercial side. He'll be a draw from a spectator side, and whether or not he plays at Inter Miami at age 37, 38 after a year or so on loan at Barcelona, it is a storybook ending that he's always wanted. It will certainly drive up the revenue that Barcelona would desperately need if he does go back on loan. And of course, from an Inter Miami perspective, possibly moving into a new stadium. Of course, they now utilize the DVR Pink Stadium as a temporary home base. Now they have gotten permission to build a new stadium. The opening of that, Lionel Messi comes to town, and what that presents itself. So I think between Barcelona, Inter Miami, Lionel Messi, it's a match made in heaven. And I don't think age will define that because of what Lionel Messi brings to the sport.
Right, and from a financial point of view, and you just mentioned it, but I just want to stress that the ticket prices, Brent, have skyrocketed, and this season isn't even started yet. I was looking at some of the prices, and a regular seat has went up to 400. Pit side, it's 2,000. So Lionel Messi heading across the MLS only means a lot more money for them.
Well, I'm currently in Miami as we speak. I was at the Inter Miami game against DC United on the weekend.
How much you paid?
I felt the entire state of Florida leaning this way towards the DPR Pink Stadium. But no, you're correct. It's a situation where, as I mentioned, the new stadium has already broken ground on that. You can picture Lionel Messi now possibly selling you season tickets through the roof and everything that comes with it. As we all know, here in Miami, it's a huge Latino population. And of course, that would also mean that sort of draw for Inter Miami. It is the perfect match in heaven for all three parties as it relates. And I do think that this will drive Inter Miami, not just the interest, as we are talking about the commercial and the revenue that this club so desperately needs. And of course, MLS, this is not the first time they've made a move like this. If you go back to David Beckham, of course, it's a similar type of move. And this is only going to bode well for the league here, both from a financial perspective and, of course, from a playing perspective as well.
Yeah. All right, Brent, we're going to leave it there. We'll watch this move by Lionel Messi very closely and see if you're correct that it's just temporary. Thanks, Brent.
Thanks, guys. Have a great one.
Yeah, still a lot more to come on the SportsMax Zone, including the story with the Sunshine Girls naming their squad to the Netball World Cup. And we also have a review of what happened today in London with the opening day of the WTC final between India and Australia. Back with more after this.